Hello, my loves, and welcome to today's episode of the Mystic's Path podcast, hosted by moi, Susie Hempstead. So if you're new to the podcast, welcome. So today I'm going to be sharing about the Cave of Eggs, also known as the Yoni Cave in the south of France. Okay, so I recently did a pilgrimage with two beautiful soul sisters through the south of France. This is a pilgrimage that I've felt called to do for the last couple of years. And one of my soul sisters is actually channeling both Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene for a book that she's bringing through. So she asked me to join her on this pilgrimage so that she could receive more coding and wisdom that she knows is supposed to come through in her book. So it was an absolute honor to go on this trip with two beautiful sisters of mine, Becky Clisset and Charlotte Rowland. So in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing about how to actually find the Cave of Eggs, how to find the Yoni Cave. Because since this trip, I've spoken to a few other priestess sisters of mine all over the world, and many of them have said, we tried to find the cave and we couldn't find it, okay? And my deep desire is that any woman that has a desire to visit the Cave of Eggs and go and sit in this incredible Yoni Cave can find the cave, okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. So this cave is beautifully connected to Mary Magdalene, and I'm just going to speak a little bit about that first before I tell you how you can find the Cave of Eggs. So the south of France is where Mary Magdalene traveled to after the crucifixion and resurrection of her divine counterpart, Jesus, or Yeshua. So after that happened, she traveled with a group of people and they arrived in the south of France in Marie de la Mer, which is also a beautiful place to visit if you are going to the south of France. That is one of the pilgrimage points. And then they traveled together up to the grotto, and that is where Mary Magdalene is said to have spent the final 30 remaining years of her life. And every single day she would sit in the cave, she would meditate, she would try to connect with Jesus. And it said that the angels would come through and elevate and lift her so that she could reconnect with Jesus whilst she was in that cave. So really, really beautiful. And to find the grotto, the St. Magdalene grotto, is very easy, okay? So you will drive to, I recommend parking at the visitor center of the grotto. And when you get to the visitor center, there's actually a beautiful gift shop there where you can buy little figurines, and I bought some Mary Magdalene coded jewelry. So that's a beautiful stop off if there's anything that you want to buy that's Mary Magdalene coded and her symbol. And then from there are two ways to get up to the grotto. So I'm talking about the grotto here, not the Cave of Eggs. And it's very obvious. There's lots of signs. You can't go wrong, really. You're just walking up and up and up, and that will take you around 45 minutes to an hour to get to the grotto, which would be my recommendation to be your first stop. So you go to the grotto, go into the grotto. It's very peaceful, very beautiful in there. There's statues of Mary Magdalene everywhere. You can go and light a candle for her, say a prayer for her. And then what I highly, highly recommend doing when you're in the grotto is over to the right side of the grotto, you'll see some steps going down into like a lower part of the cave. Now, all three of us individually went down into this part of the cave, and we all had quite profound experiences down there, and the energy was pretty potent in this part of the cave. So please don't miss this part. For both myself and Charlotte, when we were walking down the stairs, light language was being invoked, and we started to speak light language. Light language was starting to flow through us. So we both had a similar experience of this like activation energy. It's almost like we were going into like this high frequency portal as we walked down the stairs. And I can't remember Becky's experience, but she also had like a profound experience down there and really felt a shift in the energy down there. So definitely do that, okay? And I recommend doing that on your own rather than with a group of people. Just individually go down and feel the energy down there. So once you've spent some time at the grotto, lit a candle, connected with the energy there, which is where Mary Magdalene, as I said, spent the last 30 years of her life, then that is when I would recommend that you start your search for the Yoni Cave, the Cave of Eggs, okay? So when you come back down from the grotto, you'll come down from like the main grotto, just down some main steps or a slope. And then you get to a point where instead of going all the way back down the mountain, I guess it is, you're going to be turning to the left, okay? So the best way to describe this for those of you who are listening and you want to go and visit the Cave of Eggs, when you're walking up from the car park, you'll get to a point where basically it says Mary Magdalene's Grotto and you're basically there, but you still need to go up to the left to get there. When you come back down and you're back at that point, instead of going back down, you want to go in the opposite direction, okay? So the opposite direction to going back down, you're going to go to the right. Now, if you look on Google Maps for the Grotto des Œufs, the Cave of Eggs, you will be able to follow Google Maps for most of the way. So this is actually my recommendation, getting out your Google Maps, maybe download it before you get up there so you know that you're going to guarantee to be able to get online, and start following your blue dot, okay? Because that's going to get you probably pretty much like at least 20 minutes, half an hour into the walk to the Cave of Eggs. Now the Cave of Eggs, I would say probably took us like 45 minutes to get to, maybe an hour, but we did get lost. Okay, so you'll start following Google Maps, and the most important thing to remember as you're searching for the Yoni Cave is somebody absolutely beautiful has actually left a trail and support to help you get to the Cave of Eggs. So what you will see is blue, or actually they're more green, lines on the rocks, okay? So as you're walking along, you'll see a line and you'll be like, okay, we're on the right track. You'll keep walking for maybe another couple of minutes, there'll be another line on some rocks. So just keep a lookout to the left and the right of all the rocks and you will see blue lines. If you're seeing blue lines, you're 100% on the correct path, okay? If you get to a point where you're walking and there is a cross, you have gone the wrong way, okay? This is this person who has mapped the track saying you're going the wrong way, girl, okay? Or boy. So you need to turn back and get back on the path, okay? So just keep following the lines. The lines at no point disappear. Maybe there's like a few minutes like that you might not see a line, but just keep walking, keep following the Google Maps instructions and keep looking at the lines, okay? There are parts where you may feel like, oh, I'm not sure if I've gone off course. There's sometimes that the path splits, but from my recollection, you always want to be staying on the right-hand side. And at some points, you are really close to the cliff, okay? And there's like a sheer drop. So just be aware of that as well. And if you do get to a point like that, just know that you're still on the right path. If you're seeing those lines, you're on the right path. Okay, there was one point in our trek where we weren't sure if we were going the right way, and Becky had dowsing rods. So with dowsing rods, you can ask Spirit a question and you will get a yes/no answer. So we were asking Spirit, like, are we on the right path? Which way? And we actually asked the rods, which way do we need to go? And they were pointing for us. So if you do have dowsing rods, or even a pendulum would work, where you can connect with Spirit whilst you're en route. I would even recommend calling through Mary Magdalene when you do this. Then that will support you to find the Cave of Eggs, the Yoni Cave, okay? So when you get closer to the cave, there will still be lines. So if at any point the lines disappear, just know, like, you're probably on the wrong path. You need to backtrack. At no point do you have to go upwards, okay? We made a mistake and we went like kind of up into the trees. At no point do you need to do that. The path is pretty flat and level most of the way. There is some scrambling, but if you find yourself going in like quite a steep ascent, just know that that's not correct, okay? Now, when you get closer to the Cave of Eggs, there is a bit more of an opening of the path, and the Yoni Cave is quite hidden. So you're going to see some like rocks, and then you've got to go like through these rocks, and then the Yoni Cave will be on your left. I will do a Instagram reel on this. So I'll put that in the show notes. Okay, so if you want a visual representation of this, I'll put that in the show notes so that you can find that on my Instagram. I haven't done that yet, but I will do it for you. So when you get to the Yoni Cave, just take a moment to take it all in. We were so excited when we arrived because we weren't sure if we were going to make it. And when we found it, we were like, oh my God, we're here, like jumping up and down. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Yoni Cave is, or the Cave of Eggs, the Yoni Cave is a cave that literally looks like a yoni. Like the entrance to it is like this beautiful yoni shape. And the cave is said to hold the energy, the coding, the frequency of fertility, rebirth, creativity. So it's a beautiful place to go if you are desiring to conceive, if you want to tap more into your yoni consciousness, you want to do work around your sacral chakra. This is a beautiful place to go and visit. Now, when we arrived, Charlotte and I were like, boom, we are going into this cave, whereas Becky felt like she was supposed to stay back. And what was really interesting about this, and I hope Becky doesn't mind me sharing this on the podcast, was that on the way up to the grotto, I feel really emotional with this. Becky had a really, really, really significant and powerful past life remembrance very physically in her body. And we had to stop for quite a while as she was processing this energy. There was lots of grief, a lot of sadness, a lot of tears that was coming up for her. And what she felt was, in this past life, she had been pregnant as she was taking this ascent up towards the grotto. And she felt like she'd been alone in that process. So there was a lot of soul processing that was happening for her as we were taking this walk. So when we got to the Cave of Eggs, Becky said, I don't feel like I'm supposed to go in, but you two go in. Which actually felt like there was a significance there because of this past life that she'd had where she'd been pregnant, and perhaps pregnant women weren't supposed to go into the Yoni Cave because of the activation that happens through the womb space and the sacral chakra and the consciousness of the yoni when you enter this cave. So she said, I feel I'm not supposed to enter. I'll stay back and like hold the space outside of the cave, which actually felt very beautiful because even though there was no one around, I could feel that if someone did arrive, she would ask them to stay back until we were complete in the cave. It was like Charlotte and I were going to go in for our own personal initiations, and that Becky was there holding the fort and being this like beautiful maternal space holder. And she does have 2 female children, so she does hold that maternal energy anyway as a human in this lifetime. So anyway, something to note is the Yoni Cave is pitch black. It's very dark inside. So if you can take head torches with you, that is going to be very, very helpful. Charlotte and I didn't have head torches, so we took our phones and literally like slot them down our top so that like the light of we put our torches on our phones and put them down our tops, which is like not the most safe and secure thing to do, to be honest, because you do have to like basically abseil down into the cave. So if you can remember to take head torches, that's a really great thing to do. So anyway, to get into the cave, there are some ropes that you can hold on to so that you can walk backwards. And it is like quite a steep descent at one point. So this is why the ropes have been put in place so that you can safely enter the cave, okay? As you enter the cave, it gets very, very dark very, very quickly. So just a heads up, if you're someone who, is uncomfortable in the dark, definitely make sure you have a head torch. So we started to descend down into the cave, and at one point we both were like, feeling a little bit scared, like glad that we were there together. But as we started to go deeper into the cave, we saw a candle flickering at the end of the cave, like deeper into the cave. So somebody had already been in the cave that day, they had lit a candle. Now, this is not always going to be the case. So you might go into the cave and it's completely pitch black, okay? So once we got into the cave, we walked over to the altar, and it's so beautiful. There's like this incredible altar that's been set up. So many offerings from women and men who have gone into the cave. There's lots of crystals there. People have left, crystals, yoni eggs. People have left roses, sorts of rose petals, and offerings for the cave. So my recommendation is you take a candle with you and you take a lighter with you so that you can light a candle in the cave. So Charlotte and I think Charlotte had some Palo Santo with her. So we lit the Palo Santo, we were like, cleansing our energy. And then we put on some music and we started singing in the cave and, praying to the altar. And then there was a beautiful moment where we stood, there's a place in the cave a bit back from the altar that is basically a portal. So if you look up, it will be the highest point of the cave that you're looking up to. This has this like portal energy where if you stand in that part of the cave, these codes can come through and shower over you. So Charlotte and I went and stood in this like portal, and she ended up doing some energy work on my womb. Light language was coming through her as she activated my womb, and then I did the same back to her. And what was so interesting was when we were in the cave, we were trying to record things and our cameras weren't recording. So there's definitely a sacredness of the initiations that happen within this cave. So also just something else to know. So there is another compartment to the cave. So we didn't go into this compartment because I think we were just like a little bit scared too. But you'll see that there's another section that you can go down into. And I've definitely seen on Instagram that other groups have gone into this second compartment and sat around, lit candles and sung and dropped into ceremonial ritual. So that is something you can do if you choose to do. And I think there's a rope to get down into that section of the cave as well. The cave is pretty small, you guys. It's not like this huge cave, but there are a couple of sections there. And then we exited the cave. Becky was waiting for us and it was like super beautiful. So once we came out of the cave, reconnected with Becky, I think we did an activation for her in some way, and then 2 people arrived at the cave, a couple. So this was like beautiful, synchronistic, divine timing. We'd completed what we needed to do in the cave, and then this couple arrived. And what they said to us was the last time they were at the cave, there was a rite of passage happening, so an initiation happening for multiple women. So there was a group there, and one by one they were going into the cave and being initiated. So these are the kind of initiations that would have happened back in the times of Mary Magdalene and Jesus as they went through their initiation process. So I know from reading particular texts and channeled transmissions that they would be initiated by being placed in dark caves for a number of days without food, without water, and obviously plunged into complete darkness and the potentiality of creepy crawlies, snakes, animals, and the veil to the other side being very thin inside of caves and obviously in the dark. So this group was obviously these women in the group were being initiated into these kind of initiations, I guess. So that was like really beautiful to hear that actually there are still these modern day mystery schools where women are being taken into the depths of initiation. So that was just like very cool to find out about, that those kind of things are happening there. So one last thing I wanted to mention about the Yoni Cave is I felt very blessed that whilst we were doing this pilgrimage on this particular day, I was bleeding. So I actually knew that I was going to get my bleed whilst I was on this pilgrimage, and I really wanted to, because when I connect in with Mary Magdalene and her energy, I just feel so much around the womb, around the cosmic egg within the sacral chakra, and I really wanted to be bleeding whilst I was on this pilgrimage. So my bleed came basically just as we were flying to France. So I knew that for the 3 days I was in France, I was going to be quite heavily bleeding. So something that I really wanted to do was offer some menstrual blood to the cave, which I was able to do. So I took a rose quartz crystal, which I'd purchased in St. Balm. I'd found a crystal shop there. Well, we found a crystal shop there, and I bought a rose quartz crystal. And then when I entered the cave, I was able to like take some menstrual blood, put it on the crystal, and then give that as an offering to the altar. So there's so many different ways that you can give offerings, but that just was intuitively what I felt I was supposed to do, and the offering that I was supposed to give to the goddess and the cave, and this energy of the divine feminine. So I think that's everything I wanted to share on this episode today. So if you are going to find the Yoni Cave, if you are desiring to find the Yoni Cave, the Cave of Eggs, follow the lines. Follow the lines. That's all you need to do. Follow the lines. If you have a pendulum or dowsing rods, take those, and just trust that if you are meant to find the cave, you absolutely will. Okay? You absolutely will. I will do a more in-depth video on my Instagram, so those of you who are actually traveling there can see that in real time, and it will give you just like a slightly better perspective of what you're going to see and experience on that trail to get to the cave. And I hope you enjoyed this episode today. After the completion of this pilgrimage, I held a masterclass and ceremony inside of my 12-month experience, which is called the Goddess Year, where we work with 12 different goddesses across 12 months. And I bring through their origin story, their energy, how to work with them as a guide, and then also a quantum energetic experience where you get to meet the goddess. Okay, so some of these goddesses you may have already interacted with through meditation, through your dreams, through psychedelics, or just through your own channel, being able to connect with these different deities and ascended masters, goddesses. So within this 12-month experience, it's a journey deeper into the divine feminine and these different archetypes that they all hold, these different energies that they hold. And the Mary Magdalene ceremony was very beautiful. So if you would like to connect more in with her energy, understand more about who she was as a woman who did walk this earth and is now an ascended master, which essentially means that during her human lifetime, she was able to move through all of her karma, clear all her karma, transcend the ego, and eventually when she passed over, she died, she was able to ascend to become an ascended master. And an ascended master is essentially someone who's had a human incarnation, and when they die, they make the decision to like stay around Earth to support the evolution of consciousness here as these masters and these guides. So she is one of them. She is here really supporting the feminine collective right now with Divine Feminine Rising, supporting women to really remember their truth, activate their voice, connect with their womb space. And Mary Magdalene, during her lifetime and after her lifetime, she's really been shut down and accused of things, and this very distorted story has been shared around her, which many of us in our lifetime as women may also experience. So she is a woman of, or a guide of empowerment, really supporting us to actually step into who we're supposed to be in this world, the gifts we're supposed to share, and doing it in a beautiful divine feminine way, you know, not being in our masculine and pushing and driving and doing, but being in this more receptive state of the feminine and of moving through life in a surrendered way and from a more of a place of beingness. Okay, so that's in the show notes as well. If you would like to join for that ceremony on replay, the potency of the energy will still be coded within that quantum experience. Or if you would like to join the Goddess Year, you can join at any time. And there will be 12 masterclasses and ceremonial experiences with 12 of the goddesses to really support you to understand, activate, integrate those aspects of the feminine, because there are so many parts of the feminine, and these different goddesses really hold some of those more strongly and are embodied in those more strongly. So they have a lot to teach us about the wholeness of the feminine. Okay, loves, this has been amazing. I've loved recording this episode for you. If you are going to go to the Yoni Cave or the Cave of Eggs, please message me. Let me know. Message me on Instagram. I really would love to know that you are going. I can feel more and more women, especially over the next decade, feeling the call to go and connecting with this energy. And yeah, I'd love to be a witness of your journey. So I'm sending you love. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And until next time, love you guys. Bye.